Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Fantasy Fullback Doc, brought to you by the good people at the Roto Street Journal, paving your way to fantasy glory, acting as your lead blocker to fantasy excellence, making all your football-related fantasies come true. I'm your host, Nat the Truth Jones, speaking of true. And with me, as always, is the Wolf of Roto Street himself. We got ourselves a Thursday night tilt coming up. I don't know if I would call it a tilt even, but it's the Jags at the Saints. At least it's pretty even on the board right now. I have a lot of thoughts about it. I'm sure the Wolf does too. I can also say that this is the first week of the season, and I know that some people were hurt by it last week. This is the first week of the season that I have been crushed by buys and an injury here or there. So the inside scoop, the guys that you might want to take a flyer on, that's much more important to me today and this week than it has been moving forward. So hopefully the Wolf will have some gems that I can steal from him. Wolf, how you doing?
Hey, exactly right, Truth. This is definitely bye week hell mixed in with injury hell. So it is definitely a week where we're going to be diving deep into streamers, needing to really get down and dirty. But that's when we're at our best. I feel like calling out those guys, Salvin Ahmed last week, we definitely nailed our Hail Marys for the most part. I'd love to do it again. An intriguing game now that we know Trevor Lawrence is in. I guess we can dive right into that. But first, we got to, of course, crack one for Thursday Night Football. Thank you all so much for joining us here. If you're catching the replay the next day, of course, most of this content will be relevant, but this first few minutes of the show, we're going to preview the game. You can see how wrong we were or how correct we were before we go into that. But thank you again so much for being here with us, Wolfpack. Thumbs up does mean the world, as you guys all know, to help us continue to get out there and grow. Let's dive into our preview, Truth. Who are you feeling tonight?
I would lean Jags, and that's I'm saying that without seeing the spread or anything beforehand. And I see the spread. We have the Jags by 1. The over-under looks around right to me. This, honestly, this line and this over-under look about correct to me. Sometimes I see one of these and I'm like, oh, we got to smash one way or the other. This seems about right. I mean, this is probably a game I would stay away from actually betting. But if I were going to bet it, I would probably lean Jags. How about you?
Yep, I'm same boat. I like the Jags a whole lot more tonight. It's pretty much a straight up pickup game with that 1 point going to them. But hey, take the point if you can get it, I guess. But yeah, I take the Jags. And with Trevor Lawrence, that's kind of the news of the night. He is is expected to give it a go. If anything changes ahead of kickoff, of course, we will let you know. And obviously in the chat, please feel free to give us a heads up too, since we're going to be streaming, doing our preview show. So we might not catch it immediately. But all signs said he was improving throughout the week and that he is expected to give it a go. Not the best of matchups. The Saints at home, tough defense overall, but the Jags have been on pretty good fire these last few weeks. And in particular, I actually think the Saints can put up their own in the passing game as well. It is a tricky one because I could see them coming out real fired up, the Saints team. I don't feel quite as confident in the Jags winning as I do this over getting hit. They're due for such positive regression, the Saints offense. I'm actually very high on Derek Carr, so let us know if you have any Derek Carr streamer questions. I'm +4 ECR on him. He's coming fresh off a 350-point day. He has not had quite a blow up yet because the touchdowns just haven't been there. 2.5% touchdown rate so far this year. That's his career worst. I do think he is due for positive regression, though, in that aspect. And the Jags, an absolute pass funnel of a defense. 10th most fantasy points allowed, 2 quarterbacks, 4th most yards, 7th most touchdowns. I think this is where we get a nice bounce back spot for Derek Carr, who's been putting it together. So those of you that are desperate for a quarterback, and as you said, Truth, a ton of bye weeks this week, I think Derek Carr is streamable. I also would get Trevor Lawrence, though, even ahead of Derek Carr, just because he's been playing better throughout the year. I'm +2 ECR on him as well. So I'm not overly worried about this injury. They'd have him sidelined, I imagine. He has been lackluster these last few weeks, 16 points in 3 straight games. So the floor is okay at 16 points. And honestly, in a week like this, 16 points is acceptable, but he hasn't done a whole ton. So I might flip my rankings, honestly, and put Derek Carr ahead of him, who also has not been anything special. But I just really do feel like Derek Carr at home, the crowd under him, I think he's going to have a real big rebound night and at least have a couple touchdowns, 300-plus yards. And I think this ultimately does hit the over in that sense as well. I'm changing it up. I'm going Saints over the Jags tonight, hitting the over as well. What are your final thoughts before we keep moving on?
I'm going to take the Jags. I like I said, and I will lean over, although I'm not as confident in it as you. I'll just say, as far as Trevor Lawrence, Derek Carr, I'm not sure who I would rank above who, but I will say when you said, he's been a little bit underwhelming talking about Trevor Lawrence, I mean, I'd go so far as to say, at least from a fantasy standpoint, he's been bad. I mean, he's been like you could get somebody as good or better on waivers, at least in my league. I know some people will be like, oh, those people would never be available in my league. But, there have been many quarterbacks available better than Trevor Lawrence every week. Now, with the buys in effect, possibly, maybe now he's a serviceable starter, but he's not a guy I would feel comfortable rolling out at all. I will say we just got a comment in the comment section from AWS34, and he says, Derek Carr's starting OTs are both out.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I did see that. And they're not even starting their first round pick of last year. So it is in dire straits in that sense. But still, I don't know that overly impacts him. It's such a quick hit offense. Second, number 2 in check down rate, which has been hideous. It's weirdly like boom or bust with Derek Carr this year. It's either a check down, second highest check down rate. He also has like a top 3 deep passing rate though too. So he's never really targeting that middle of the intermediate range, which doesn't make sense because Olave can kill that intermediate deep range. They're either going all or nothing this year on that. And yeah, the tackles definitely could have hurt him, but I just think this pass defense is weak. I think they're definitely down. And looking at Lawrence's numbers, you are right, Truth. He has been very underwhelming. His season high came in week 1 with 19. He's never topped 20 fantasy points this entire year. He's been outside the top 12 quarterbacks in 4 out of 6 weeks. And last week was quarterback 11 with 16. It was just such an underwhelming week at QB that 16 points was actually a top 11 performance. So, yeah, I mean, it could just be a gross game to avoid, but I just think with so many buys this week, I just have a good feeling this game gets a little more exciting than people are hoping for. I can already see your wise ass text in like the fourth quarter when it's 9-6. Yeah, real exciting game, Wolf. Great call. Like I can already feel it coming. But I think this game ultimately hits that over of 42 and gets to about 45. I don't think it's going to be a complete and utter shootout. But I think the Saints show up here at home, and Lawrence has some garbage time racking up of stats. The only other news and notes on this game is Jamal Williams is expected to return to the lineup. It'll be interesting to note what that means for Kamara, who's been the definition of a bell cow these last few weeks, certainly in the passing game as well. I don't think Williams will interfere with that, but I do expect him to mix in for about 35-40% of the carries and maybe interfere with that goal line volume as well. So that could be a definite detriment. And the only other player I want to shout out is actually Taysom Hill. 8 targets last week, 7 catches, 48 yards for Taysom Hill. He hasn't scored at all this year. He seems due for a touchdown too. So if you're playing like DraftKings Showdown, if you're completely desperate at tight end, I do have some Hail Marys I'd go to ahead of Taysom Hill, but listen to those. And honestly, if you feel like those guys are either not in your league or you want to just roll some dice and get a little Thursday night juice, Taysom Hill's not a horrible way to do it, but you know who you're starting tonight. Olave's in there. Fringe Michael Thomas. Kamara's obviously in your lineup, even though I'm -3 ECR on him. It's more so the quarterbacks that are the ones that are more up in the air tonight. And I think you play them both in such a short, strapped week. I'm higher on both those guys in the ECR tonight.
All right, we're going to get right into the news in a second. Before we do, give us a like if you haven't already. Give us a subscribe. We are slowly climbing those subscription numbers.
We are.
We'd love to blow up at some point, but we love the steady progress. Wolf, I would just like to ask you one more question going in. You talked about Derek Carr with the home run or check down, basically, options. What is your prediction for number of targets and catches for Alvin Kamara tonight, keeping in mind that no matter how high that number is, he won't get over 40 yards receiving?
Yeah, exactly. The yards don't matter. It's really just strictly PPR at this point.
Like, would like 12 for 40, 12 for 30?
I was going to say 9 catches, 41 yards. He gets the over receiving tonight on that 40. He crosses the threshold. Yeah, just dink and dunk PPRs, though. You out there will love it. So yeah, I think he hits that for sure. he will break one of these at some point. Kamara is the type of guy, if you keep throwing him these short little garbage passes, at some point he's probably going to take one for 60 yards or something. But Kamara of old, maybe he just doesn't. I know all camp the reports he's got his juice back. He's timing out at the highest miles per hour he has in years. He hasn't looked at it. Maybe that's just the fact of the line or the fact that they're just not giving him anything to work with here. Both line-wise and Derek Carr just throwing it to him as 4 defenders are descending on him. I don't know. I don't know if he still has that gear to outrun the entire defense like he did in years past. But at least he's going to rack the touches up.
I admit it. I said it, and then I was just like, I haven't seen it.
You had him last year on your team. You know how horrible of an experience it was. It's been better this year, at least volume-wise, but He's not.
It was awful. I had multiple teams last year, and I had him on all of them.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into week 7 news, and we're going to kick things off with Justin Fields. Justin Fields, who made me look bad briefly with 1 or 2 really good performances, then had a really bad one where he got hurt. Now it looks like he's not going to be playing again. He did not participate in Wednesday's practice. He's got that thumb injury, and his coach has already come out and said that he is doubtful for week 7, which is going to throw rookie Tyson Bagent or Badgett. I don't know which it is, but he's the guy that's going to get the start. The offense, meanwhile, also still dealing with that injury to Rashawn Johnson. They've also got an offensive lineman with an ankle injury. So I don't know. Get as far away from the Bears as you can this week.
Yeah. And if you thought that game could get any uglier, on the other side of the ball, Jimmy Garoppolo will not be playing. And that means Brian Hoyer likely to start. Yay. So that
Brian
game
Hoyer and Tyson Bagent in the same game.
Yeah. Get your popcorn, folks. What an exciting matchup. It is definitely a concern. Although Hoyer did go 6 for 10, 100 yards, actually moved the ball pretty competently. I'm less worried about my Raiders products than I am the Bears, and that's for sure.
Okay, that's fair. You want to talk Kyler Murray real quick? Because he's practicing in limited fashion, and Ian Rappaport has said that he is going to play, and this is a quote, plenty this season. Now he has been quite well substituted for. It was something we didn't really expect. We didn't expect Josh Dobbs to come out and do anything, but he's been pretty good, actually. He's one of the guys that was on waivers for a while that I said was better than Trevor Lawrence, except then somebody snapped him up. Anyway, he was designated to return from IR, opening his 21-day activation window. And John Gannon has said that he's going to be a full go in practice. What do you think?
Yeah, so he got a couple limited practices in today. And honestly, still only under 30% rostered right now. He should have been in IR spots anyways across leagues. There's so many leagues. If you're tuning into this show, you probably know to use your IR spot if you're hardcore enough to find us. But honestly, I'm in a league that's been running for almost 20 years now. Hardcore league. Everybody loves it. We're all invested. Over half the league doesn't have someone in their IR spot, and Kyler Murray's out there. I just have Josh Allen, so I don't need to use my IR spot on Kyler, but I'm just sitting there wondering what the hell's going on. So check your league. Like, you can still have him in your IR spots. And even if not, this is definitely historically a top 5 quarterback in points per game nearly every year of his career. He can run all over the place. We'll see what that looks like in the John Gannon offense. But in the preseason, he talked about how much he wants to maximize his mobility, maximize his deep arm. And this offense has been, as you noted, clipping at a decent pace right now, even with just Josh Dobbs. So I would not be shocked at all if Murray walks right in and is a top 12 quarterback from here on out the rest of the year. And he's just sitting there for free on your waiver wire. So definitely go pick him up. Another guy sitting a lot of waiver wires, Daniel Jones, and deservedly so, cut by a ton of teams. He's limited in practice, still has not been fully cleared for contact, but it seems like he's trending the right way. It is a good spot against Washington in an ugly week. Could you ever go back to Daniel Jones? I don't know. We'll talk about it a little bit later, why I might be willing to take another stab at him.
Move into running backs. You're going to be willing to take a stab at Daniel Jones longer than most. Christian McCaffrey. But by the way, I don't want to try. I've said before, I have no idea if Daniel Jones is any good because he is not set up for success at all. No, so I don't want to make excuses for the guy. I mean, he's looked terrible, but I feel like almost anyone would have looked terrible under these conditions. I
was thinking that all year, Truth. And then Tyrod Taylor, not that he looked great last week, but they moved the ball better than Daniel Jones has in every quarter other than that second half against the Cardinals. So I don't understand.
But so a couple things that made me feel old. Tyrod Taylor's in his 13th year in the NFL, which to me, he's like, a young upstart. Second thing, do you know Tyrod Taylor has 65 career starts and he's 500, he's 32 or something like that. He's a quality, he's done well. 500 over several seasons. That's pretty good.
He's as good as it gets for backup QB. Gardner Minshew will be the next Tyrod Taylor, in my opinion, where it's just not really a worthwhile starter, but can always keep you afloat, 500-ish, like you were saying. I've always been a Tyrod believer. I've always liked the guy, and I always have pulled for him when he starts. And I was impressed last week. Almost led a win against a great Bills team. I wish they had. So, yeah.
I was pulling for them also. I mean, and with that said, and I agree, he looked probably better than Jones. And at the end of the day, they put up 9 points.
Yeah.
Something like that. So
it still
wasn't that awesome. All right,
Yeah.
Christian McCaffrey is still dealing with that oblique muscle. He did not practice on Thursday. Not a super encouraging sign, although they don't play until Monday night. So there's that. He's got that extra day. Obviously, Shanahan, here's a real hot position for him to take. He's hopeful that Christian McCaffrey will play. Yeah, of course you are. He did have an MRI that was supposedly encouraging. He considers McCaffrey day-to-day. We'll just kind of follow this story as it develops.
Yeah, well, we'll see. It is tricky because he plays on Monday night, but ideally you've stashed either Jordan Mason or Eli Mitchell. My favorite of the two being Jordan Mason, but I do expect a pretty near even split should we miss McCaffrey. Honestly, though, they're facing Cleveland. Like, you got to wait it out for McCaffrey, of course, if you have him, but you have to have backup plans in place, and I don't know that either of those two running backs would do great against. Oh, no, they're not facing Cleveland. They just faced Cleveland. They're facing Minnesota. That's a great matchup.
Yeah, that's a great matchup, man.
So either of those two running backs, well worth streams. Should they miss time? Jahmyr Gibbs sounds like he's trending. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Did you have something to say on CMC?
I was just going to say somebody in my league dropped $40 on Jordan Mason this week.
Oh, my God. See,
I was like,
people are idiots. I love Jordan Mason. I think he's a great player, but $40, come on.
No. So anyway, go ahead. I just had to put that in there.
Yeah, just hideous. Shout out your idiot teammates.
Okay,
I love it.
yeah.
League mates. Jahmyr Gibbs sounds like he's trending to play in week 7 against the Ravens. Good to see him back. Perfect timing because David Montgomery expected to miss the game. Craig Reynolds also limited in practice today, expected to play as well. And Dan Campbell's been very forthcoming with his injury reports throughout the year. So I do imagine both those guys will be out there. Last time Montgomery missed, about 60% of the workload went to Jahmyr Gibbs, but he's now coming off an injury himself. So I do expect a little bit more to go to Craig Reynolds this week. And both of them, again, in a week like this, bye week hell, injury hell, I think both of them are plays this week.
I agree. Aaron Jones, hamstring. Yeah. Aaron Jones is, man, I have a buddy who basically has awful running back situation and he had Aaron Jones. And so like once Jones went down, he's been rolling out some of the worst guys you've ever seen.
Yeah.
So anyway, Jones coming back. He's got this hamstring. You know me, I always talk about the hamstrings and how bad they can end up being. He practiced on Thursday, which is 2 straight to open the week, which you'd have to see is extremely encouraging. He got put down in week 5. He did have that week 6 bye to get the additional rest. So hopefully he's going to be coming back strong. He is playing against, wait for it, the Denver Broncos. So if he's even got one good leg, you'd have to think he's going to be back on the field.
Oh, yeah. He's going to go bonkers. We'll talk about him in more detail in a little bit. Kyren Williams using a scooter. Not something you ever want to hear about your running back is that he's using a scooter.
The last player that we talked about using a scooter was Eddie Lacy.
Yeah, out of the buffet because he had too much Chinese food and he couldn't walk himself out. Yeah, exactly. You never want to hear about your running back on a scooter, but that's what Kyren Williams has been riding around this week with cast-like material or whatever that means on his ankle for the week. This opens up the door, and it's going to be a shitstorm. Who knows who's going to end up taking over here? Most expecting Zach Evans. We'll break down this running back field in a little bit more detail when we get to higher, lower Hail Mary. My advice, just to preview it, is to avoid it. So you'll know where Zach Evans is going to fall for me. I am not in on it. I called him fool's gold on the waiver wire show this week, and I still believe that, especially with the latest comments of Sean McVay that we're going to dive into a little bit deeper momentarily.
Is it worth talking about Henderson and Gaskin at all, or are we just
part of that? Both of them got signed by the team, and it's just more so to make this a more muddy mess than we'd ever expect. Royce Freeman getting called up. Again, should Zach Evans be a featured back when that's your competition? Probably. But honestly, he's not that great either. I'll talk about how I expect this backfield to go a little bit later, but I don't think Zach Evans by any means is a must start this week, even in this chaos of bye weeks.
All right, Zach Charbonnet, who has been the clear number 2 behind Kenneth Walker in Seattle this season, did not practice on Wednesday, and he's got a hamstring injury. So we probably won't see him for like 4 or 5 weeks. And I don't know that for a fact. Who knows? Running back hamstrings are tough, especially for running backs. Looking like you may not see him this week.
I have seen him get cut a bunch, and I know you're not picking him up to use him anyways. If something happens to Ken Walker, though, Charbonnet would be an immediate top 12 running back. We got Ken Walker right around the league lead in goal line carries, touchdowns so far this year. Charbonnet's a real talent, too. It's not one of those backup situations that you're just plugging in a slug. He could really do some damage as the lead back in this highly productive run game. So I know he's getting dropped because of this hamstring injury. I'm going to be scooping him up wherever I can find him at this point. Great bench stash, even with the injury going on right now. Damian Harris not practicing on Thursday. I think he could not. I would be shocked if he ended up playing after getting carted out on the stretcher, going to the hospital. The promising news is the fact that he's even like somewhat viable to play. I would be stunned though should he play. And the real reason this is a mention is after he went out, it became a dead even split between Murray and James Cook. And Murray, in desperation situations, you're already playing James Cook, but in desperate situations, Murray's still out there in a bunch of leagues, gets goal line work, can catch it. He's gross. But with Damian Harris out of the equation, I could see Latavius Murray being one of those guys that ends up putting up a top 25 week for you because it's just that ugly this week.
Did you know that Latavius Murray is the oldest running back in the NFL?
I didn't, but it doesn't surprise me now that I hear that.
I mean, like, yeah,
I saw more earlier this year, like the fact that he's the new guy that's blocking a young running back from reaching his true potential. It's like Frank Gore, the never-ending guy. Murray just continues to like look okay and keep going. You know, he is old though. He was our first year ever doing podcasts. Remember, he was like our running back of the year. And he was really good, like with the Raiders. That was his biggest year he's ever had in his career. That was a year with David Johnson. Oh, we could go all down memory lane, but you guys have Thursday night football questions.
We love memory lane.
In the past.
We love it. Wolf, we're about to dive into the wide receivers. Your video is really choppy. Why don't you exit and come back in, and I'll handle the first guy. And if you're not back by the second guy, I'll do him too.
Sweet.
Usually when you go out and come back, it fixes it.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to get into wide receivers. If you have not yet given us a like or a subscribe, please do that. Devontae Smith, hamstring. We've been talking about nothing but hamstrings lately, it seems. And he expects to play Sunday against the Dolphins. You don't got to worry about me, he told the media on Thursday. I'll be out there. So I don't know if his word means anything, which I hope it does. Smith will be in there. Obviously, the injury itself, we say it makes him a little more of like a boomer bust wide receiver too. But if you have Devontae Smith, you are definitely rolling him out there. He's not one of these guys you can leave on the bench, I would say, regardless of the situation. So expect to see him, even though he is suffering from a dreaded hamstring injury. Speaking of hamstrings, and it seems like this is the all hamstring episode right now, Deontay Johnson, he was a full participant in Wednesday's practice. He's been on IR, and I guess is still technically on IR, but the Steelers have opened his practice window, which, what did they say? I forget the amount of days or whatever that the practice window is, maybe as many as 21. But a full practice on Wednesday certainly points towards the Steelers activating him from IR ahead of Week 7 matchup against the Rams. So all you Johnson owners, we've actually already had a couple Deontay Johnson questions in the comments section. He was a full participant. It kind of looks like he's going to be back. And Wolf, speaking of people who are back, the Wolf's back. He's on the wrong side. He's on the wrong side of the screen, but he's back.
I know. One sec. I got to change this. I can't handle you on that side. Does it seem any better, or should I do a hard like reset?
It's a little choppy. It seems a little better. I mean, I don't know. Your audio has been fine. That's the main thing. But like, you definitely have been a little choppy. Your video, pretty much the whole time. I can keep running some of these down if you want to do a quick reset.
I'll keep rolling, and then if it looks worse, just let me know. At any point. Devontae Adams acknowledged on Wednesday he's frustrated with his diminished role in the Raiders offense. Sounds like a good squeaky wheel narrative to me with Devontae Adams. As good to get greased as anybody, but ultimately with Brian Hoyer, how valuable would that grease be? Probably not overly valuable, but still obviously a top 10 receiver. I bet you he gets peppered this week.
Debo, he will not practice on Thursday. Remember, we dealt with this earlier with Christian McCaffrey. You know, a team as great as the Niners, granted, they had an extremely shocking loss to the Browns. Then they lose their best receiver probably, and certainly their best running back, maybe the best running back in the NFL. He's still got 2 more days to get out onto the practice field. They say his absence Thursday is mildly concerning, but since they're not playing till Monday night, you know, we will have a better sense later on in the week. Obviously, if Debo does not play, Brandon Ayuk's stock takes quite a hit up. Judging by past performance, past stuff we've seen, Debo is one tough guy. If he's able to go, I think he'll go.
Yeah, absolutely. In Minnesota, one of the top 3 matchups for wide receivers. I know it's Monday night, so we definitely have to keep tracking this news heading into the weekend. Check in with me and CJ also on Sunday to make sure. But yeah, if Debo's in, you got to be playing him, even though it's been more of a lackluster season for him. And then moving to the tight end position, Pat Freiermuth started the week as a full participant, ultimately then moved down to a limited participant on Thursday. No word yet if he suffered a setback of the hamstring issue. But to me, if he's in, I really do like the Fry this week. Great matchup for him. We'll dive into him a little bit later when we get to tight ends, higher, lower Hail Marys.
Hunter Henry dealing with an ankle issue, supposedly. Did not practice on Thursday. He's missed each of the Patriots' first 2 practices to start the week. He is obviously trending the wrong way as far as playing against the Bills. You know, if you want my extremely cynical opinion, he probably just doesn't want to get out on the field for this hot mess of a team anymore, especially when they're about to play Buffalo. It's probably, my ankle's kind of acting up. I might sit this one out.
Yeah, Mike Gesicki could see a little bit of a boost should Henry miss, but honestly, it's tough to trust any single piece of this abysmal Patriots team. And then Greg Dulcich, he made 1 week return, and he's off the field, not practicing on Thursday. He's always had intriguing athleticism, but, man, not seeming to come together for him. So I would not be preparing for a Greg Dulcich week this week.
All right, that's going to do it for the news. We obviously have higher, lower Hail Mary coming up right about now. If you have not already given us a like, please do so. I know I've already been shilling for likes and subscribe twice in the episode already, but 3 times. You might even hear it once or twice more before the end of the episode. We could really use it. We'd love to hit 3,500 soon. We'd love to hit 4,000 or 5,000 by the end of the year. We can't do that without you guys coming in here, spreading the word, subscribing. We think our content is pretty darn good. And everybody who ends up discovering it is just like, wow, where have you guys been all my life? So bring it on. We'd love more members of the Wolfpack.
We've been here waiting. Come on in.
Right. Higher, lower, and Hail Mary quarterbacks. You got 2 guys. Neither one of them you have much of a discrepancy amongst the experts with. We got Jordan Love playing at Denver. You like him at 9. The experts like him at 10. It seems like any quarterback matching up with Denver, you would say, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Also, you like Jared Goff at Baltimore. Slightly bigger discrepancy, but still not much. You like him at 10. The experts like him at 12. That one could come into play because you could be talking about fringe starting, stuff like that. So tell me anything else on either of these guys that is noteworthy.
Well, of course, Jordan Love, Denver. You got to love any position facing Denver, especially quarterback. Second most points allowed to the position. Most touchdowns allowed in the league passing-wise. Particularly, they struggle with deep balls, and no quarterback has attempted more deep passes per drop back than Jordan Love right now. And last week was a bit of a dud on the deep passing spectrum. He took a ton of attempts, could not connect with Watson on most of those, but ultimately he has had a successful year when going deep down the field as a whole. So I imagine after the bye, Watson fully getting right, and we're going to dive into him in a little more detail later. I do think Love he's had 20-plus points in all the 4 straight weeks to start the year. Right. Struggled last week on Thursday Night Football against the Raiders. But other than that, he's been very, very solid. And ultimately, or 2 weeks ago, rather, on Thursday Night Football in that one. But yeah, I really, really like Jordan Love. He's had a great year so far, other than one real dud. What better spot to come out of your bye and just blow a team the doors off them than the Denver Broncos? And then Jared Goff, as you mentioned, I'm stunned that he's this much of a fringe quarterback. He's been the quarterback 4 in back-to-back weeks, and the Ravens do look brutal. So maybe that's why the experts are a little down on him. 31st in points allowed to the quarterback position, but this is who they faced on the year. Week 1, C.J. Stroud with his entire second-string line there. First game of his NFL career. He's really taken off since then. That was not the best C.J. Stroud we've seen. Joe Burrow with no calf. Gardner Minshew. Dorian Thompson-Robinson for the Browns. Kenny Pickett. And then Malik Willis and Ryan Tannehill. They have not had a single test, this Ravens team, all year. And Goff has been an animal, actually in the MVP conversation at this point of the year. As mentioned, top 4 quarterbacks in back-to-back weeks. He's been top 6 in half of his games. Yes, he does struggle on the road typically, but then last week, boom, 22 points against a good Tampa Bay secondary, 353 yards. Plus, you got no Montgomery. So that means at minimal, probably more red zone attempts, maybe a more pass-happy script. You got a Ravens team on the other side that has not completely hit full go yet, but we've seen glimpses of a really good offense. That game could shoot out. Definitely a lesser running game for them to lean on here with the Detroit Lions too. So I think Goff could definitely outperform this quarterback 12 ranking. And we're going to get into lower. There's a guy that's ranked ahead of him that it makes no sense to me. Jared Goff has such a much higher floor than so many people. I think he's got to be locked in the lineups this week.
It's funny. You sometimes when you have guys that you're 1-2 spots, higher or lower than, I'm like, well, why are we even messing around with this? But your lower guys, you're both 2 lower than the experts on. And it's like, honestly, the guys that we just talked about and these guys, they're probably just like in a 1, 2, 3, 4 stack right now in the overall ranking. So actually, you saying the two you prefer and the two you don't prefer actually is a little more significant than I thought initially. Yeah. Sam Howell, the guy that you're a little lower on at the Giants, you like him at 13 as opposed to the 11 that the experts like him at. And then you're a little lower on Matt Stafford against Pittsburgh. You like him at 11. The experts actually like him all the way up at 9.
Yeah, exactly. And you kind of hit the nail on the head here, especially a quarterback. It's tricky to get significantly huge gaps for the most part when there's only.
Although you have it on you do have it on your Hail Mary.
I do have a few Hail Marys, and that's where you can get a little wild with these things. But I try to focus on the higher, lower Hail Marys. Could I say I'm higher on Tua this week? Of course, but everyone's starting Tua anyway. So I tried to go into that pack of quarterbacks 11 through 15, and which ones would I want to start over the others? That's kind of the process here, is to really dive into the guys you're actually considering benching or starting, and which way do I go when I have these couple options. So Sam Howell, sure, he's been good all year, 17 points or more in all but one start. That one start was atrocious. The Bills, 4 interceptions, the interception every quarter. But otherwise, he's been really solid. Most pass attempts over expectation, 3rd most in the league. There's a lot to like about Sam Howell. The Giants, middle of the pack matchup, but I think they're trending the right way. They just held Josh Allen to 14 points. Then they held Tua to 16 points the week before. Seattle quarterbacks only combined for 11 points against them. They've been really turning up the pressure rate across these last few weeks under Wink Martindale. And who gets sacked more than anybody? Sam Howell. He's on pace right now to take an NFL record 95 sacks. I saw a funny tweet. I think it was Cooter Doodle saying, if you had fucked 13 guys across your last 6 weeks, you have taken less sacks to the face than Sam Howell. And it's I was like, that's a pretty good one, ultimately. So yeah, Sam Howell, I'm worried that the defensive strengths of the Giants, and there's not a ton of them, but they can get pressure. That matches up very poorly for Sam Howell, who should still be okay, but again, over Jared Goff, who he's ranked ahead of right now? No, not in my opinion. Jordan Love, a lot of people saying go Sam Howell over him. To me, I like Sam Howell if that's what you're streaming. Totally, I get it. 38% rostered, a great guy on the quarterback waiver wire if you need somebody, but not above some of those more sure things, in my opinion. Then you mentioned Matt Stafford. This one's a little trickier for me because the Steelers have been a pass funnel defense. It's more so just this is one of those weird discrepancies of Stafford's looked phenomenal real life wise. When you watch a Rams game, he's making some throws that make you say, wow. He's got Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. He's got these 2 receivers that have really been thriving all year, and yet we haven't had Matt Stafford finish above the quarterback 14 all year. He hasn't had more than 17 fantasy points in a single game. This is the ultimate discrepancy of real life, just value looking amazing, and fantasy-wise, just not necessarily dominating. Now, the reason for that is they get so run-heavy when they get in the red zone. Kyren Williams has been absorbing all the touchdowns. So maybe I'm overlooking the fact that they don't have Kyren Williams this week. They have Zach Evans, who I'm not high on. Maybe they do just end up taking the air completely, putting it fully under the rock here and letting Matt Stafford just light it up. So I would not be shocked if Stafford makes me look like an idiot for this one. And that's why he's quarterback 11. I'm only a couple spots below ECR. I'm just worried about that track record of the year. The fact, again, that Steelers, yes, they're more of a pass funnel, but only 18th in points allowed. They held Lamar to 10 points the last time out there. Good front that can get to the quarterback really well. And this is a bad Rams offensive line. We've seen Stafford struggle with the pressure throughout this season. So I just think looking at the history of the year, you got to be a little bit more cautious with just tossing Matt Stafford as a no-brainer, locked-in top 10 quarterback, which is what people are assuming he's going to be this year.
That's fair. I referenced the fact that you actually do have a monster discrepancy. No surprise what horse you're riding on this one. But we look at Hail Marys here. The guy leading the list, you got Daniel Jones against the Commanders, and you like him a full 9 spots. That ain't nothing. 9 spots more than the experts do. Defend your pick here. Go ahead.
Yeah, tough one to defend, and this is probably where we lose all our viewers at this point. But Commanders are allowing the 3rd most points to the position, and that's with Josh Dobbs putting up 0.9 points in week 1. Since then, 25, 22, 24, 32, and 19 points. 2 quarterbacks. It's not a good pass defense by any means. Now we know this is not a good pass offense. 2nd lowest pass yards per game in the NFL right now. But Daniel Jones, he has that floor kind of with 40-plus rush yards in 3 of his 4 starts. I know he's scary to trust. It seemed like this offense did get their footing, though, last week. And ultimately, Daniel Jones might not play, so we don't want to dive into him too deep. But honestly, if he doesn't play and you're desperate, I think Tyrod Taylor would be similarly benefiting from this decent matchup. Wandale rounding into form, looking really good. Waller finally seeming to get some footing there, too. I just think the offense is coming around a little bit. Certainly not the juggernaut, the diet Bills that we were expecting entering the year. Not even close to that. But I just see positive trends, a good matchup. Maybe this is the spot where Daniel Jones gets his season back on track. I could sure use it. Maybe it's just wishful thinking on my part. But if you don't have him, he's not available to you, or you don't want to go to the Giants, I understand you. Desmond Ridder, only 5% rostered right now. Another big risk because he is completely game script dependent. But when he's been forced to throw for 2 straight weeks now, quarterback 6, quarterback 5, 26 and 19 fantasy points, even with 3 interceptions last week, back-to-back 300-yard days. There is the chance he gets benched because at this point, Taylor Heineke, they got to be thinking about him over there in Atlanta. But at least we know that they can actually just decide to ride with Ridder. And Arthur Smith came out and said, I noticed how stacked the box was, and we have other ways to beat teams. So just the fact he's acknowledging we don't have to just be this run-heavy, run-obsessed team. If that's how they're going to force us to play, we can go for it. And Ridder has, for the most part, again, 3 interceptions, not good. But when he's had to throw it, he's been able to rack up the fantasy stats. And I could imagine that's going to be the script. That's what led to the Falcons losing multiple games. I think teams are going to really stack that box and force Ridder to beat them, which could yield some decent fantasy numbers.
All right, let's roll on to running backs. You got 3 guys you're a little higher on. You got Javonte Williams against the Packers. You like him at 15. That's 3 above the experts. Aaron Jones also in that same game going against Denver. Hello. Running back 10. Only one. I mean, you like him, but the experts like him just about as much. And then Jeff Wilson. This is what I was looking for. At Philly, RB29, 14 spots above the experts. This is what we're paying you the big bucks for. Well, let's talk running backs.
Yeah, Javonte, I just thought eyeball test-wise, this is the best he's looked since returning from his injury. Green Bay is a right bounce-back spot as you can get 5th most rush yards on the league, 4th most schedule-adjusted fantasy points, 5th most points in general to the running back position. Sure, we know it's a committee here, 35% of the snaps and just 10 touches last week. That's the floor, and it is scary. I understand that. But I think after a really solid week of tape, after showing he can make it through the game fully healthy, I think that reduced role was more injury-based than actual performance-based. I bet the role continues to keep growing. To running back ones this year, we've seen 14, 19, a dud with the Saints with no Alvin Kamara, but then 33 and 17 points allowed by Green Bay. I think he gets into the end zone. I think Javonte gets to at least 15 points. A lot of questions coming in on him, and I like Jaleel McLaughlin too, if you're desperate, but I like Javonte Williams. I'm ready to toss him into my lineup and feel good about it. Aaron Jones, though, this is more so just because I have gotten a lot of questions about him, and I don't know how. He's so explosive on a team giving up more explosive plays to running backs than any other close to league history at this point. They are so bad against running back. 148 yards, most in the league. 2nd most touchdowns, 1.5 per game. 4th most receiving yards, 53, and most receiving touchdowns surrendered to running backs so far on the year. It's as beautiful of a matchup as you can ask for. In his only other full game, Jones was the running back 1 in fantasy. Perfect week to just walk in, 2 weeks of rest. I imagine he'll be as close to full health as we'll see all year. And I think he's going to – this is just a classic Aaron Jones, like 30-point blow-up. You could not have him on your bench in a spot like this. And then Jeff Wilson, as you said, the biggest discrepancy of the list, 14 spots. It's more so a bet on the fact that I do believe in Mostert. I'm not worried about his role. This is not an indictment on him. Still a top 10, I think top 6 running back for me this week if I double-check my rankings. But I think Wilson could end up inheriting the goal line work, which we've seen this team lead the NFL in rushing touchdowns all year. Jeff Wilson was the hammer for him last year. His first couple of games with the team, 16, then 20, 12 points in the first half. Wilson was a perfect fit on a less explosive run game last year. I think this is the perfect spot for them to try to hammer this defense. And I know it's one of the best D lines in the league. It's a scary thing to plug Jeff Wilson here, but this is my bet. Similar to Sullivan Ahmed last week, I think he takes over the clear number 2 role, and that's been a very valuable spot for running backs all year. So Jeff Wilson, if you're desperate, you picked him up and you have to decide between him or picking up like Zach Evans on the waiver wire, I'd rather just roll with Jeff Wilson and not burn that roster spot on Evans.
I got the worst. I've been doing fantasy for probably 30 years. I got probably the worst trade offer I've ever gotten in my life a couple days ago. From a friend of mine son who's in high school. So it wasn't like a troll offer. He wasn't trolling me. It's like he actually was like, hey, what do you think of this? And he offered me A.J. Dillon and Dalvin Cook for Raheem Mostert.
Oh, come on. Who would ever accept that?
I was like, so you would offer me the RB 45 and the RB 61 for the RB 2, and you're sending me this with a straight face. And he was like,
you got a lot to learn, boy.
Like, son, like, don't call me again unless you're serious. I was appalled. I was just appalled.
It's time to grow up, son.
Lower. I know, seriously. Lower. Jonathan Taylor against Cleveland. You like him at 19, 4 below the experts. I mean, if you ask me, he has not looked too great. I know he's still supposedly rounding into form, but I have not been that impressed. Especially my buddies that have been sitting on him all year waiting and then sprung him out and were like, this is going to turn my team around. Hasn't exactly turned their teams around yet. I still think we could get something out of him, though. Zach Evans against Pittsburgh, you talked about your thoughts on him earlier, but elaborate a little bit. You like him at 32. The experts like him at 27. And then Najee Harris at the Rams. You like him at 34. The experts, for some reason, like him all the way up at 21. Go on. Talk about those guys.
Yeah, let's dive in. Of course, Taylor, the highest of these running backs, the least worried of them I am, but a lot of questions come in. Can you trust Jonathan Taylor yet? And if I don't have to, I really don't want to this week. It's a bottom 5 matchup. Cleveland's defense and front 7 have been monstrous. The season high in terms of half PPR points they've allowed this year was 12.7 last week, and that was to Christian McCaffrey. You hold Christian McCaffrey to 12.7, and that's the goals you've given up. That's pretty scary. For comparison's sake, Derrick Henry against this defense, 11 carries, 20 yards, similar kind of role to what Jonathan Taylor is more of a kind of up-the-gut, bruising type of running back. Zach Moss has continued to outsnap and really outplay Jonathan Taylor since he returned. 80% of the snaps in week 5, 49% of the snaps, so it became a much clearer split for Zach Moss and Taylor. But ultimately, Zach Moss has been the running back 2 and running back 8 since Taylor returned. Taylor himself, running back 35 and running back 20. And last week in that running back 20 finish, that was a great matchup for him. And he still didn't really light the world on fire, kind of dependent on receiving volume there. So I still think he's kind of rounding himself into form. Zach Moss is still remaining here and relevant. And this is not the game. If you don't have to risk it against Cleveland, that's not where you want to put your eggs into this basket right now. I know most of you will, if you're starting Taylor, is probably out of necessity on a week like this. I have a lineup where I'm playing freaking Keontae Ingram, so I get it. Like, I'd rather have Jonathan Taylor than that. But in a league where you could decide between him and someone like Jerome Ford on the other side of the rock, I'd probably rather go with a Cleveland running back right now. I'm worried about Taylor, at least for this week. Zach Evans on the other one. A lot of people, this is going to be one of the biggest questions of the week. Can I start Zach Evans? Yep. And it's not a bad matchup, Pittsburgh, but I do not trust Evans at all. McVay asked, can we expect Zach Evans to start since he was the next man up after Kyren went out last week? His first comment, I wouldn't say that. Hey, we've got a lot of week to evaluate this. You'd love to see a ringing endorsement. Yeah, Evans earned it. He's been great in practice. We love him. He said really not anything positive. He did mention that, yeah, we like how Evans has looked in practice, but the beat writers wisely pointing out Evans has been the scout team running back all year. He has not once been running the actual Rams offensive scheme. So he's on pretty much equal footing to all these new guys they brought in. Darrell Henderson, who after McVay said, no, I don't expect Evans to 100% be the starter, then went on to praise Henderson, how great it is to have this guy back, how familiar with the scheme he is, how reliable he is in pass protection. And that's kind of my biggest rub with Evans is he could never in college ever, despite being this 5-star high school recruit and this one of the best players in the nation, he never once defined himself as a college running back, could never seize a lead running back role at TCU, at Ole Miss even, was outplayed by a freshman when he was there. He's just never been a lead back, and I don't expect that to change now at the professional level, even though he's competing with Jags and Royce Freeman, Henderson, Gaskin. I think he's just a Jag himself, and I don't think he's going to be trusted with Matthew Stafford, keeping him upright, keeping him pass protected. I imagine those snaps are going to go to a veteran who's done it before, and that's more valuable to this team right now than trying to establish a rookie running back who's just not that good in general. So if you're betting on Evans, it's a pure opportunity bet, and is there a chance he just takes the Kyren Williams role, gets 18 touches, gets the goal line work? Sure, that's all very possible. But to me, yeah, Royce Freeman's a bigger back. Darrell Henderson's more trusted in pass protection. Gaskin, who they brought in, I've always been a Myles Gaskin fan. I think he's just a better outright runner right now than any of the guys they have here. So to me, it's a four-headed. We'll see who's actually activated. We'll see if there's any other tea leaves heading into Sunday. But as of today, we're recording on Thursday. I have no interest in putting Evans in my lineup. I called him fool's gold on our waiver wire show. I think he's fool's gold if you put him in your lineup this week. I do not trust him. But let us know if you have Evans questions. There's a good chance I'm not going to go with him. And then, as mentioned, Najee Harris, a whopping 13 spots below ECR. I just don't get how he's the running back 21. He's had only one game above the running back 31 on the season. He's been outside your top 40 running backs in 3 of his starts so far this year. In every single week this year, it's horrible. Weird. Jaylen Warren has outscored him legitimately every single week of the year on less than half the work. We started to see the backfield turnover, 49%, a career high for Jaylen Warren last week. I wouldn't be shocked at all. We see teams make big switches after the bye weeks. Wouldn't be stunned at all if the entire backfield gets turned over to Jaylen Warren this week and Najee is the second fiddle. They do have all the draft capital invested, and there's a sunk cost fallacy related to that. So I get it, and I do expect him to continue to be involved. But against a tough Rams defense, 25th in points allowed to the backs position in a situation where he hasn't been good all year anyways, why is he a locked-in regular, high-end running back 2 in the expert rankings? That is the one that makes zero sense to me. I want nothing to do with Najee Harris. Who's ranking him this high? It makes no sense to me.
I guess a bunch of people. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me either. I've been out on this guy for a year and a half at least. But you would think that as more and more data rolls in and you can actually see, okay, this is game upon game upon game when he's been outside the top 30 as far as RBs when there's 32 teams in the NFL. You would think that would count for something. I kind of, not to bring him up, but it kind of reminds me a little bit of Kyle Pitts. But it's just we see again and again and again and again him not do anything, and for some reason he still lingers around tight end 6 or something. I don't get it.
Hey, don't hate on the man that was a top 3 tight end a couple of weeks ago. Trust me, I'm a Kyle.
It doesn't take much to be a tight end. 40 yards and a touchdown, that'll put you top.
Well, that's what he did, pretty much. Exactly.
That's exactly what he did.
On American soil. I think it's his first touchdown ever scored on American soil.
It is.
It's wild.
That is so funny. Anyway, let's talk Hail Marys. We got Craig Reynolds going at the Ravens, 18% owned. I completely agree with what you said before about the Ravens, where they have not really gone against anybody yet this year and really kind of earned their chops. Keontae Ingram also 22% against Seattle. Reynolds, obvious with Montgomery out. There's obviously going to be a value hole there. But anything else to say about him?
Yeah, it's just tricky. It's an ugly week, as we've said so many times. Reynolds, to me, would be the first one I'd look to. Dan Campbell absolutely loves this guy, and you saw why. He does those little things. He threw a huge block on Amon-Ra St. Brown's touchdown where he just pancaked the guy, and I love those things, and certainly Dan Campbell, a former player, he loves that stuff. And after the game, he couldn't stop raving about it. He said Craig Reynolds plays for the guys around him. He does everything right, all the little things. He shows up in critical times. Couldn't praise him more for all those things. And remember last year in Hard Knocks, I remember him saying, we'd be sick if we ever lost Craig Reynolds. We cannot cut this guy. So we know Dan Campbell's a huge believer in him. And honestly, I like the guy too. Every time he plays, he seems to be churning out positive yards, making his impact felt. Last time Montgomery was out, he only saw about 30% of the snaps, but he was ultimately splitting time with Zonovan Knight in the backup role. And that was with a fully healthy Jahmyr Gibbs, who did see 17 carries, saw 60% of the snaps. I don't think Gibbs, coming off a hamstring injury, is going to see that big of a workload. I think this will be much closer to a 40-60 split. Yeah, maybe favoring Gibbs, but I think Reynolds will absolutely get his work, and he'll be the first guy up when they get into the red zone. So if you're desperate for a back, I know the Ravens not the best of matchups, but I do think Reynolds would be the first one I look at because I just believe in the offense and believe in his touchdown upside there. Keontae Ingram's a much flimsier play here, but he did ultimately dominate the carry share and dominate loosely, 37% of the rush attempts compared to 30% for Damien Williams. But the big thing was Amari DeMarcado, who a lot of people were all in on. He ultimately only played 7% of the rush attempts, played more of the snaps, saw a bunch of the routes. It's an ugly situation, but the Seahawks have been a middle-of-the-pack matchup. We're looking for volume at this point. He put up 7 points last week. He was a top 30 running back on that. Seems like he'd be the favorite for goal line work. Again, when you're getting this muddy, this ugly, you're just looking for some volume and a shot at a touchdown. And I think Keontae Ingram has that, even if it's pretty hideous. It's a very flimsy play. But again, we're dealing with 6 teams on byes and a ton of injuries. The The other guys, of course, maybe the Bears, if Johnson Foreman got cut. But yeah, those are the two guys I would look to for now.
All right, as we roll into wide receivers, we're making pretty good time. I want to remind you once again, if you haven't already, please give this episode a like. And that also includes if you're watching us, in an hour, in 2 hours, tomorrow. The like helps us out either way. Gets more people to the live stream, of course.
Yeah, we got about 26, 27 here. We've had Thursdays with 50 or so. Please, bring some friends in, share it on out. We love having you guys in here. We're going to have plenty of times for all the questions, which is why we start early now, so we can make sure to have so much time to dedicate around you guys. So please do consider liking it, getting it out to more people. As Truth has said, we're climbing to 4K, climbing to 5K, maybe even this year. Would love to have you be a part of the pack. And thanks again for being here in the first place.
We seem like we've gone on a little bit of a run as far as subscribers in the last week or so. So that's kind of cool. All right, wide receivers. Let's talk higher. You like Amari Cooper going against the Colts. I don't see anything about where he is on the list or how much more you like him. So you can tell me that once you give us the X's and O's on him. And then, of course, the game that you've been peppering with all of your overs, Christian Watson at Denver, wide receiver 19. 5 above the experts. That one probably requires almost no explanation except to say that they're playing the Broncos. But tell me about Cooper.
Yeah, so I have him at 18 plus 2 ECR right now. He's facing an Indianapolis secondary that has just gotten pummeled by wide receiver ones. 4th most points allowed. 2 number 1 receivers at 22 points a game. We saw Hopkins have a career renaissance, 18 points just a couple weeks ago. Cooper himself putting up wide receiver 20, 13-point day with PJ Walker last week. Over half of his games have been 13 or more fantasy points. Just really steady, really miracle floor when you can do that with PJ Walker. So whether it's Deshaun Watson back, whether it's PJ Walker, this secondary is so bad for Indianapolis, in particular against number 1 guys. I mean, we've seen some huge blowups. I mentioned, of course, Hopkins, but I mean, from Calvin Ridley to whoever they faced as the number 1 receiver has pretty much had at least 18 fantasy points. So I love Amari Cooper. Definitely keep him locked in your lineup no matter who is at quarterback. And then Christian Watson, plus 5 ECR on him. He's kind of a fringe wide receiver too for people. I think you have to lock him into your lineups. One, we saw a full-time rollback, 84% of the snaps, 71% of the routes, near full-time roll. At least the training wheels are off. He's not a part-time player anymore. Plus, he had a bye. He's fully healthy. He's off the injury report. 23% target share in that first week back, and then a whopping 70% of the air yards last week out. 28% of his targets were first read targets as well, which you love to see. Now, I get they have Pat Surtain there in Denver, but he has not been the Pat Surtain of old. Wide receiver ones have gotten deep on him multiple times. DJ Moore, 23 points. Tyreek Hill, 26. Even Terry McLaurin, 14 points. Solid stuff. Yeah, the Denver defense is more vulnerable to tight ends, to running backs, to quarterbacks, but I still think Watson can absolutely, with that week to get the timing down, with obviously Jordan Love showing that he loves this guy and throwing him a bunch of shots that ultimately did not connect. Maybe they do connect this week because he could have had, a 150-yard, 2-touchdown day if even a couple of those deep bombs passed against the Broncos. What a spot to have that welcome to 2023 game.
All right, guys, you're lower than Hollywood Brown at Seattle. You like him at 22. The experts like him all the way up at 15, borderline wide receiver 1 range. Also, George Pickens, and this one makes it pretty obvious to me, at the Rams, wide receiver 32, 5 below the experts. His target share has to go down as Deontay Johnson looks almost certain to return.
Yeah, it's tough ranking Marquise Brown this low, given he's seen 10, 7, 10, 10, and 11 targets across his last 5 weeks, and he's been a top 18 receiver for the vast majority of that. But last week, even on 11 targets, just 4 catches, 34 yards, 5 points. And I think a lot of the reason he's getting steamed up this week is he's facing the Seahawks, second most points allowed to wide receivers. But when you look closely, the last 2 weeks are the only 2 games they've had both of their starting corners out there, and no wide receivers top 13 points against them. They've been very good even with just 1 corner against number 1s all year. Jamar Chase just had 11 points against them. They've been actually sneaky bad against wide receiver 2s. They're allowing the most points to number 2 receivers, but among the middle of the pack to bottom half of the league in terms of points allowed to number 1s. So Brown, even though he had a down week, he's had a ton of volume, I just don't trust him. I think the Seahawks secondary is better than what those stats show because they're finally getting healthy. Since they've gotten healthy, they've really locked down receivers and especially number 1 guys. George Pickens, 5 spots below ECR. It's not a good spot against the Rams, especially because they're very zone heavy. Top 6 in zone rate in the league. And that's not what Pickens does well. He's much more of a man beater. He's been better against the zone this year than he was his rookie year, but still significantly better against man than he is against zone. And we've seen it's already been so boom or bust, even without Deontay in the lineup, even with the vast majority of targets going his way. He's either been a top 4, top 9, and then 72, 39, 51 wide receiver. So it's been very, very boom or bust for George Pickens. And the 1 week that he had, I looked at the San Fran game where they're a very zone heavy team as well. Deontay Johnson was on the lineup for about half the lineup, the matchup. He had 6 points, wide receiver 51. So I just don't think Pickens, a lot of people cling to the numbers he had, but Deontay Johnson, with him back, there's no way Pickens continues to get that 32% first read share. I know a lot of that goes back to Deontay, who had 6 targets and a half last time out. So I don't think this matches up well for Pickens at all.
Hail Marys, Michael Wilson against Seattle, 19% roster, and I'm hoping for this one because of all the buys. I'm actually rolling Michael Wilson out, and also you like Wan'Dale Robinson, 23%, and Darius Slayton also going against Washington at only 3%.
Yeah, I had to get a true Hail Mary in there. We'll start with Wilson, who's getting dropped everywhere. Check your waiver wire. I think he's in a really good spot. He's been phenomenal against zone coverage this year. One of the highest yards per route run in zone coverage against the entire NFL. And this team we just talked about Seattle being very good against number 1 receivers. They've actually allowed the most points to wide receiver 2s in the league. We just saw Tyler Boyd outscore Jamar Chase. That very rarely happens, but that's how they roll their zone coverage. They take out that number 1 option. Number 2 guy typically thrives on there. And we just saw Wilson lead this team on receiving with just 4 targets. He's been a big play threat. He's been a red zone threat. He's been after the catch threat. I love the kid. I think he can really play ball. I think this is the type of matchup where we really could see him thrive. Wan'Dale Robinson, fresh off 27% targets, 73% of the routes, both season highs, as was 8 catches for 62 yards. It's a slot funnel offense. This defense, though, Washington a little bit more generous to outside receivers than slot guys, but I still think because this offense loves to just pepper the wide receiver position, Wan'Dale's in a good spot. He's the highest floor guy here, but I could see Slayton or maybe even Jalen Hyatt, the exciting rookie playing 80% of the snaps, really getting involved for the first time. But Slayton, much more the veteran here, much more trustworthy. 93% of the routes, 17% of the targets, 11 points last week. Washington has been horrendous against wide receiver 1s, second most points allowed to the position. It just kind of feels like a Slayton gets deep. They've been getting dusted. That Forbes, their rookie corner, tiny guy that's been getting bodied all year. So I think Slayton's in a good spot. If you're desperate, 3% roster, he's out there in your leagues, you need a Hail Mary, I think Slayton could really get it done for you.
All right, let's talk tight ends. We're getting down to it now. We talked a little bit earlier about Pat Freiermuth in the news, playing at the Rams. You got him at tight end 10, 3 above the experts. That puts him as a starter as opposed to just outside starting. So why do you like him a little more?
The Rams have been as good of a matchup as you can ask for tight ends. 3rd most points allowed to the position, but then number 1 in schedule-adjusted points, 95.9% plus production on what you typically expect from your tight ends when they're going against this Rams team. It makes sense. Zone coverage, as we were talking about, oftentimes the tight ends finding that gap, those soft spots in the defense. They've allowed the 3rd most yards, the highest yards per reception, and we've seen Pat get deep down the field, down the seam. He can do that. He's also tied for the most red zone targets on this team, despite missing multiple games this season. They love to use that big frame when they get in there. I bet you he pops a deep one. I bet you he pops a touchdown in there in the red zone as well. I'm a big fan of Freiermuth this week. I think he could be a really good smash play, even though he's just returning from injury. I saw him dropped in a lot of leagues too. So double check your waiver wire. If you need a tight end, I think Freiermuth kicks off a nice second half run this week.
Cole Kmet on the opposite hand. He's going against the Raiders. Tight end 14. You like him, and the experts actually like him just slightly inside as a starter. 2 spots above where you like him.
Yeah, it's a good matchup here against the Raiders, a top 6 one, in fact. But are we forgetting that Tyson Bagent or whatever this creature's name is? He's the starter. I don't want to trust anyone in this offense.
I haven't forgotten that. I did not forget that.
And we also can't forget that Brian Hoyer's on the other side of this game. To me, is going to be one of those just disgusting. Both teams run the ball 40-something times, bleed out the clock. Let's get in, let's get out, and see who is on top by the end of it. I do not expect a ton of fantasy production in this game at all, and certainly not from the 3rd option in the past game at this point. Sure, he had a couple booms, 24 and 13 points, Cole Kmet, but last week with Fields knocked out for over half the game, just 2 catches, 9 yards. I'm not expecting much better than that. So he's not a starter for me. I'd rather have Freiermuth. I'd rather actually have the Hail Mary I'm about to talk about.
All right, Hail Mary. Michael Mayer, and you got an exclamation point after him going at the Bears, 26% rostered.
Yeah, if Hoyer does one thing, it's target the tight ends. It's been that way since he was with the Patriots, and it was that way when he came in. We saw a 21% target share go to Michael Mayer last week. He bumped up from barely a fringe player to a 67% of the routes, and with that increased usage, delivered top 5 tight end stats, 5 catches, 75 yards for him last week. And just eyeball test, bowling over people, juking people out. This kid, if it wasn't a historic tight end class with, we've got Dalton Kincaid and of course Sam Laporta drafted ahead of him, almost every class he would have been the number 1 tight end in it. His 4.7 40 is top 75 percentile. When you adjust it for the fact that he's 6'5", like 260 pounds, moves up to the 80th percentile for speed score. He's a good athlete, and 3.6 yards per route one, 25% targets per route. Really, really good efficiency. When he's been out there, he's been used, he's performed well, and his usage just only continues to go up and up and up. So I really like Michael Mayer as a stream, top 12 guy for me in a good spot as well. Chicago, bottom, 8th most points allowed to the tight end position as well. So if there's anybody I want to trust in the passing game for the Raiders, of course, you got those Hogs and Adams and Jacoby Myers. They're going nowhere, but I do actually like Michael Mayer as well.
All right. That actually does it. We did that in like 1 hour and 1 minute. So that's pretty good. That leaves us with 20 or 35 minutes, 36 minutes before kickoff. We should actually be able to hit everything. We actually have a super chat we want to hit real quick that just came in. And it's from West C. Thanks a lot.
Cut that line, folks. Thank you so much for the support. You support your boys. You cut the line. It's a win-win for everybody. If anybody else wants to toss us one, it's so greatly appreciated. But a free way, of course, is that thumbs up button. But thank you, Wes. Let's dive into what we got for you.
All right. Full PPR, Amari Cooper, Calvin Ridley. That's interesting. He's starting Puka and Cup already, which I love.
That's a really, really tough question. I definitely start both Rams receivers. Looking at my rankings, I think I have these guys neck and neck. And honestly, I've been thinking about bumping Ridley down. It's tough. I have Ridley at 16 and Cooper at 17. So yeah, I do have them literally neck and neck right now. But I wanted to bump Ridley down the more. I was looking at it earlier today, and I forgot they played on Thursday night, so I haven't done it yet. I don't know. You got Marshawn Lattimore likely on him, locking him down. He's been so boom or bust so far this year. 16, wide receiver 6, then 3, 4, 10, 14, wide receiver 9, then 3 points. Oh, it's a little tricky. I don't love Ridley this week. I'm moving him down, actually. I could see Lattimore kind of locking him down and Christian Kirk becoming the more viable play here. So I'm gonna go Amari Cooper, the guy we're higher on. 4th most points allowed to wide receiver ones. Soft defense there for the Colts. I'm gonna get Ridley out of my lineup tonight. I'm gonna go Amari Cooper. What about you, Truth?
I would also go Cooper, and I sincerely hope that Kirk does have a good night because, like I said, I'm highly depleted, and I do have him. He's been great, by the way, for me. He's a legit top 20 receiver.
He really has been. Anytime Zay Jones is out of the lineup, you get 90% of the routes, you get a bunch of the targets, and just very steady red zone too. So yeah, I bumped down Calvin Ridley. He's now my wide receiver 18, just below Amari Cooper, now 17 for me. So Wes, thank you for helping me guide my ranking decisions here. I hope we guide each other to the right one, and we go Amari Cooper, and he has a big day.
Love it when the Wolf adjusts real time. All right, Wolf, do you want to do these banners, or do you want me to?
Well, I first want to bring in the legend himself, our call-in master, Mr. Campanelli. How are we doing tonight, brother?
What's up, Campanelli?
Oh, you're muted, Campanelli. We can't hear you.
Hey, guys. What's going on?
Get it together over there. How we doing, brother?
I tried to unmute him, and a banner came up that said, "You can't unmute your guest. They have to unmute themselves."
So I got to bring Deontay off of the IR. Who do you drop? Do you drop Jordan Mason or like KJ Osborne, Curtis Samuel, Zach Evans? Like,
that's a tricky one. To me, it's one of the running backs. I don't drop either of those receivers. They're both viable. They're all starters. Do you need Evans or Mason? Like,
that was more like handcuffs. I mean, I have Kyren, so it was more of like my protecting my handcuff kind of thing with Evans. But now with the Gaskin and Henderson news, I'm like, maybe Evans isn't the guy because, McVay's a big Henderson fan.
Yeah, I agree with that. McVay praised him as fast as he could in that first presser. I mean, I would hate to tell you to drop Evans, then he has like a CJ Anderson. We've seen McVay do that, like sign someone off the street, and it was a couple of years ago, but you remember that truth when CJ Anderson came to the Rams in the fantasy playoffs and was like the number 2 running back in the fantasy playoffs. I mean, we've seen it happen before. I don't know. I just don't believe in Evans at all. I think Mason's also droppable though, because like even if CMC misses the game, he's probably splitting time with Mitchell. You have to wait it out till Monday night anyways to find out. Are you starting either Mason or Mitchell? Like, are one of these guys starting in your lineup no matter what, or are they just bench guys at this point?
Evans and Mason are both bench guys right now.
Get rid of them. I'd say either one. Trust your gut on that. I personally would probably cut. Now, could you cut Mason today? Is it Yahoo League where you could cut Mason? If Evans sucks, you cut him and pick Mason back up before Monday Night Football?
Yeah, I would just have to wait out the 2 or 3 day waiver period.
Cut Mason today. You activate Deontay. If Evans sucks on your bench, cut him and then pick Mason back up.
There we go. Thank you, guys. Also, you have a super chat from Omar.
Oh, I saw it. Thank you so much, Camden.
See you.
See you guys.
See you later, brother.
All right, we had all this time, and now all this money's just pouring in, and we're losing our time. We love it. It's a good problem to have.
That's a great problem.
Omar, $5, $5 holla for my guys. Should I play Evan Ingram tonight or wait on Dallas Goedert, who was limited today? Full PPR. Thanks, guys. Go PJ Walker.
Oh, this is a really tough one. Go PJ Walker. He's a big Browns fan over there.
You heard him.
Hey, Omar, you got to be pumped though. PJ Walker upsetting the 49ers. I mean, you got to let's go. I love the Browns. I like to pull for my grandfather was from Cleveland. Like I'm not a Browns fan by any means, so I can't say I've been a long-suffering fan with you, but I certainly pull for him, and I hate Deshaun Watson. I hate that that's the guy you got to root for right now, but I pull for that defense all day. I mean, damn, they're good. Talking about this sit start, I do go Goddard. I waited out. He's going to play. Just 2 weeks ago, 18 points, number 2, and you're facing Miami. You're going to need points. You're going to have the air under the rock much more than the Eagles probably want to most weeks. I got to go for that. That game, I mean, how do you not want a piece of that game versus – sure, I said I think the over hits tonight, but we could just get – I could see this game be 9-6. It could be hideous, Saints versus Jags, whereas we know the Eagles versus Dolphins is going to be a barn burner. The Dolphins have not been good against tight ends either. I have Goddard at 6, and Ingram's been solid at tight end 8, but the Saints have actually been one of the toughest matchups for tight ends for multiple years in a row now too. I'm definitely going Dallas Goedert here and getting a piece of that exciting game. What do you think?
I agree. I'd wait on it. I'd go for Goddard. It's the upside is a little bit too tantalizing for me to let go.
Yeah, Ingram's been so consistent too. 8 targets in every week, but last week and he had 7. I mean, he's been solid. But yeah, I just go. He's been solid on the targets. He just hasn't been producing. Does he have a touchdown on the year yet? No, he doesn't. So I guess he's due.
I don't remember him scoring any touchdowns.
No, he hasn't. So, I mean, both him and Goddard have struggled in the touchdown department, but Goddard, just in a better game environment, has had that blow-up game too. And I could definitely see another one here against Miami. So, yeah, I'm going Goddard there, Omar. Thank you so much for the support. We really do appreciate it.
All right, let's go to the top of the list right now. It's going to kick off with our guy, Krana Shah, who,
hell yeah. What's up?
We got to have a meal with him sometime. You know what I mean?
I would love, I don't know where you live, Krana, but let's all get together and taste some weird food together.
All right, I'll put it on to start. Krana Shah, hey guys, favorite interesting food combo you've tried? For me, I recently tried crackers with spicy mustard, and it was surprisingly not bad. Yeah, that sounds pretty good, actually. I can think of 2 interesting combos that I've tried lately. First of all, pickles on pizza, especially if they're fried or something, really good. Second of all, have you ever had hot honey, Wolf?
I love hot honey. Oh my God. I'd drink it out of a bottle if I could.
Okay. So, I mean, just hot honey on sandwiches, as just a condiment, especially when, you got a little bit of mayonnaise there, they kind of are at war with each other almost. It's just fucking delicious.
You know what's classic truth is, and this is too weird because my combo, I don't have a ton of weird ones that pop right to mind. I get baked and try weird shit. So I wish more would come into mind. But one thing I remember, I was really high one night and I was doing like prosciutto, cheese, cracker, your classic. I drizzled hot honey on it, and it was a game changer. I ended up mowing through like a box of crackers, a sheet of prosciutto, as much cheese as you could. I was going to say hot honey on little snack meats, deli meats, A+. So we were completely synced up and locked in for that weird food combo.
I just started eating it recently, and my God, I'm never going back.
It's so good. I fucking love hot honey. Oh my God, I love it.
I love it. In Krana, seriously, I don't know.
Like, I never had like hot honey wings. Like,
yeah.
Have you had hot honey wings?
No, but I mean, I love wings and I love hot honey, and I cannot imagine they wouldn't be spectacular.
They are. I've always been a buffalo wing guy, and ever since I had hot honey, that and garlic parm are my two favorite now.
Next time we get together, let's eat something with a lot of hot honey on it.
Let's get a bottle of hot honey, just squeeze it into our mouths.
It's not impossible. And Krana, wherever you are, like if you're ever in the same place as us, we should totally get together and just eat a bunch of stuff.
Yes.
Let's get to some of. Yeah, I know. I really do genuinely appreciate those questions. Krana also has a bunch of football questions. I have Kamara and Etienne play both or put Barkley in for one of them. PPR Howell over Lawrence this week also. I'm
not benching Etienne. I know we've been hesitant as a show. We were, Duck came and Duck took us to the tool shed. Again, shout out Duck. I know he often listens to us too.
It eats me up inside.
It eats me up inside. I never want to be wrong, and certainly not to the Duckling. But man, Etienne, 34 and 22 points, top 3 running back in back-to-back weeks. You can't bench him. Even though it's a tough matchup against New Orleans, you can't bench him. To me, I'm actually playing Barkley ahead of Kamara, and I know that does not go with the ECR, but I like the Washington matchup. I think this offense started to show a little bit of a sign of life here. Barkley looked pretty good himself. Another week of recovery under his belt. I'm benching Kamara here. I could see Jamal Williams being a little bit more of a thorn in his side, and he's just been so inefficient. The Jags are a much more pass-friendly matchup than run-friendly matchup, and I get Kamara's most damages through the pass game anyways, but to me, I have Barkley 9, I have Etienne 4, and I have Kamara at 12, so I'm benching Kamara for Barkley.
It's hard. I'm definitely playing Etienne. It's hard for me, the Barkley Kamara thing, just because of I really do think he's probably going to catch 9-10 balls. So it is difficult for me to bench him. I understand why you're saying Barkley. I might lean Kamara because I would like having something going tonight, and I know that's not a great reason.
Well, he could Howell versus Lawrence. He could have some. He has Etienne anyway, so Etienne's going to give him some juice.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're right.
Full PPR, so you're right. Full PPR does give Kamara much more consideration because even that inefficiency, if he's catching 9 balls, boom, that's a touchdown and a half.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to do anything. So I get that too. I'm biased because I have Barkley. So maybe that's part of what's factoring in here, but I go Etienne and Barkley myself. What about Howell versus Lawrence for you?
I'm going Kamara officially.
Kamara for you, nice.
I'm going Kamara, and I guess in this one I would. I don't love either of these guys. I guess I'd probably lean Lawrence. How about you?
I think I would too, but part of me is thinking it through, and I'm like, I don't love the matchup. I don't love that he hasn't really produced much this year. He's banged up as well. Oh man, I might be moving Lawrence down below Howell after tonight. Like, it's another one of those questions where it's like, I think that we've had Howell outscoring Lawrence, and let's look at this real quick: 20, 26, 18, 3 straight weeks at least, and 4 out of the 6 weeks, Howell's been the better quarterback.
I'm the guy that literally in this episode talked you down and was like, actually, Lawrence hasn't been like okay, he's been bad, and then you actually provided me with evidence that I was correct.
Yeah.
So okay, forget what I said.
We're benching Lawrence there. You know what? I'm changing the rankings.
We're going Howell. We're going Howell. I mean, it's like could we be wrong? Sure, but at this point, I feel like Lawrence is in you got to prove it to me territory.
Kind of, yeah. And what if the knee injury flares up? There's a lot of risk that you just don't really necessarily have to take on tonight.
Right. Agreed.
Like Howell's been, other than that one dud, a really high floor. So yeah, you know what? I'm changing the ranks. I'm going Howell above Lawrence. I'm bumping Lawrence down. Thank you, Krana.
Love the real-time adjustments. All right, let's keep going. Krana's got a couple more. This is what happens when you roll in before 6 o'clock for a 6:30.
You get the prime spot. You get in your tent early, but we'll go quick through Kranas because we do got to hit other people. So Krana, I'm just going to rapid fire Kranas real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
We love you, Krana. You have the best questions in the world with the food stuff. But yeah, we got to get to other people too. So Gibbs, Rice, Dobbs, Wandale. I'm going to go Gibbs for the flex there. And then London, Addison, Warren, or Z Evans. I'm going to go Addison there as the number one. And then Reynolds or McKinnon. I'm like Reynolds there. And Mixon on bye and Roschon probably out. So we got some tough spots here. Warren, Jaleel, Zeke, Murray, Jamal, or Reynolds. I think I go Jaleel and Warren, but Reynolds is entering that conversation for me for sure. A lot of those guys, honestly, Cron, I know it's hideous, but those are all the kind of plug and plays I'm into. They're all in that same tier of like, wouldn't mind plugging these guys in. I'd probably go Jaleel and Warren, though, as my first bets. Reynolds is right there as my third, though.
You just said you were into it like it was like a fetish or something.
I'm into RB4s that could be RB2s. Yeah.
It moves the needle. Juan Pena Jr. Who for my wide receiver 1 and 2 in flex spot? Lockett, Myers, Curtis Samuel, Cooper, Romeo Dobbs, Tank Dell, Jordan Mason, AJ Dillon. Give me 3, Wolf.
So Tank Dell's on bye. We can cross him right off. Well, I'm telling you.
Not starting him.
I definitely go Lockett and Amari Cooper.
There's no way in the world that AJ Dillon is touching the field.
No. And Jordan Mason, you'd have to wait till Monday Night Football unless we get like tomorrow. CMC's not playing. If that happens, we have to reevaluate. And Juan, I know you'll be there. And Juan, by the way, I thought I was going to owe you a chug. You said you were still there. I said if Juan Pena's here at the end of the show, I'll chug a beer. And he said at like 12:40, I'm here. And I said it was like 12:50. We're about to sign off. I'm like, Juan Pena, your last call, you here? He bailed out early. So Juan Pena, you almost had me there. We were getting super chats for Chug's Truth. It was an ugly Sunday. I'll tell you that much. I know I got together by the time me and you recorded, but like Chillard tossed $10, chug a beer. Then another one followed suit. And sure enough, I was like 4 beers deep by 1 o'clock. It's like, oh boy, we got one of those Sundays.
I mean, I would.
Regardless, back to your questions. Lockett, Cooper, they're the locks here. I think I go Myers. I know Hoyer, not as easy to trust. But honestly, the other options just feel pretty distant to me. Samuel has scored a touchdown in 3 straight weeks, 18% target share. I mean, he's looked really good. But Myers has been rock solid, and he has past experience with Hoyer too. So I'm going to go Lockett. I'm going to go Cooper, and I'm going to go Jacoby Myers. What about you, Truth?
Me too, 100%.
All right. Sweet.
Moving along. Looks like we got another one from Juan, huh?
Yeah. Oh, do you want me? I'll click them. Yep, I got it.
You're good. Cousins over Purdy, or should I go out and pick up another quarterback since Jefferson's out? I got both Purdy and Cousins. Who do you like more, Cousins or Purdy?
Purdy. I'm always a Purdy guy. I know he kind of let us down last week. Tough Cleveland defense, as good as they get. I'm buying the Purdy bounce back. Minnesota's secondary is atrocious.
Likewise, I'm also going with Purdy.
Sweet.
Brendan Sharkey, what's up, Wolf? Jahan Dotson is just gross. Should I consider starting Hyatt over him? Lots of buys and injuries, half-point PPR.
Did you see the video? Jahan Dotson's now the holder on special teams. That's what we've gotten to. The 16th overall pick, your wide receiver 1 pick a couple years ago, killed it last year. I don't know what's happened. Obviously, I was all in. One of the bigger busts of the year for me. I actually gagged. I saw it and I physically, I had to run to the bathroom. I thought I was going to puke. So bad. I don't know about Hyatt over him. I'm not opposed at all, Brandon Sharkey, to benching him. This is the type of week where everyone pounds on him because he's now holding the ball, and then he goes off for his 2 touchdown day. That's how the fantasy gods operate. And Hyatt has done nothing. So, if it's one of these two, I'm going to go Jahan Dotson. That being said, Slayton, I'd probably play above Jahan Dotson. If Wandale's out there, certainly him. The Hail Mary picks we gave tonight, Sharky, I'd go any of those guys over Jahan Dotson. I'm down to cut him. I'm not a must roster anymore. But I'm not going to go Jalen Hyatt over Dotson. No. Couple Wolf icons and smash the like button. Thank you, Carrillo. Much appreciated, man. Smash that like button, folks. We really do appreciate it. It really does go such a long way.
Emil wants to know thoughts on Christian Kirk rest of the season. I like him, Emil.
I really like him. I know the first week when Zay Jones was active, Kirk was only in 3 receiver sets. Now, I don't expect that anymore. I think at this point, given how well he's played, given Jones has not been healthy or reliable, we're going to have that all day. We're going to have Christian Kirk. So I really like him. Quality wide receiver too, here on out. He's just got such a great rapport with Trevor Lawrence. So yeah, I'm a big fan.
Demario Davis, New Orleans linebacker, is out.
Big news. Yeah, that's a beast up there in the middle. So maybe ETN even better,
We talked about
this. Yeah,
they
mentioned this.
Derek Carr.
A good D line against a banged up offensive line. Yeah, I mean, I know at the beginning of the show I came out guns blazing. I think both these offenses could impress, and we get a shootout. The more we've talked about it, and like the more I've realized how injured these teams are, I think the under is the play tonight. I'm changing my tune. I hope anybody that was here at the beginning catches that, but I'm going Saints under at this point.
I'm glad to hear that because like you kind of made me feel like I was crazy because this seems like a 16-9 game to me or something.
Yeah, I do feel like this game could get kind of ugly. First play of the game, Olave goes like a 90-yard touchdown.
Look, I would rather watch that. Like I want that to happen. My instinct is that like I don't know, neither one of these is.
Yeah,
they haven't done it yet. If they're going to be offensive juggernauts, Clayton says, "Are you starting T-Law or Love this week?" Let's go Love.
Oh yeah, Love easily. That definitely Love this week.
Robert says, "Do I roll with Christian Kirk tonight with a hobbled Lawrence or Deontay Johnson coming back his first week from IR?" That's an interesting question.
I like Deontay. I'm a big fan, but I'm going Christian Kirk. We've seen it week in and week out, and honestly, a hobbled Lawrence might mean just more quick hits to Christian Kirk tonight. So I'm definitely going him.
Me too. All right. How about Lawrence against Stafford? I think I'm going Stafford.
Stafford was my lower, but Lawrence is certainly lower than him this week.
Okay.
Yes.
Giuseppe. Hey, Giuseppe. What's up? Not in a good place, fellas. Shaking my head.
I hate to hear that. I love you, Giuseppe. I hate that you're in a bad place.
He lost Dobbins. He lost Achane. He lost Kyren Williams. Who do I start? Justice Hill or Jeff Wilson if he plays? I would say definitely Jeff Wilson, but I don't love your situation.
I don't love the situation at all, but yeah, let's go Jeff Wilson. Hope for the touchdown. Hope he's my boy. So yeah, I'm going Jeff Wilson there. Lost Anthony Richardson, Geno or Carr. I got to go Geno there. Arizona, horrible defense. I know I was hyping up Carr a little bit tonight, but no starting tackles now. I'm going to go Geno.
Jeremiah lost Richardson, so he picked up Kyler. That could be a good Band-Aid down the road. He's also got Lamar as his QB1.
You're fine. I mean, you had a luxury of having Lamar and Richardson. That's probably more of a headache than anything, Jeremiah. So
yeah, I hate when I got to guess, man. I really do.
Yeah.
And I know I said this to you earlier when I drafted my quarterbacks. I drafted Tua and Dak, and I was like, who do I start? Who do I start? And it's like that has been so obvious ever since like first quarter of the first game.
Oh yeah, you have no dilemma there. You can cut that at the point. Yeah.
I know. I'm gonna fill his spot with someone else. Lex plants some trees. If Deshaun Watson plays this week, should I drop Howell to pick him up? I have Kyler in the IR.
No, I'd rather have Howell. Absolutely. No doubt about it. More productive, more easy to root for. Yeah, absolutely.
I think we skipped one.
Oh, did we?
Yeah. Brent, right here.
I'm not seeing it. Can you pull it up?
See this one right here? Brent?
No.
Mike Thomas or Deontay Johnson?
I literally do not see that comment anywhere.
Wow.
I'd go Deontay Johnson over Mike Thomas this week. I don't know why that's not showing up for me. Do you want to the last one I see was Giuseppe's in a bad place, and now Agent Z I do see. So I don't see I do not see Brent's. I don't know where that was.
All right.
That might be when I dropped out for a second, Truth. So maybe the comment didn't register on mine.
Oh, maybe that's true, actually. I'll bet that
Probably
is exactly
it. Probably
all right,
is.
Agent Z. All right. Well, then we should be good going forward. Agent Z, hey, would you guys play Michael Thomas or Drake London, PPR?
I'd go Drake London. I think he's really shown some good juice here.
And then Lex says also drop Eli Mitchell for JSN, 10-team league.
I love JSN. Good comments coming from Pete Carroll, how they're ramping him up. The tackle's getting healthy, more 3-receiver sets coming. If you don't need the running back, I would go JSN. Yes, I'd rather have him.
All right. McCole Hardman, by the way, who's made his long return back to the Chiefs last I saw. Is he worth a pickup? PPR.
Absolutely. Truth. We talked about him last year quite a bit. There was a stretch run for like 4 weeks where he was a top 12 receiver in fantasy. We've already seen how underwhelming that receiver core has been. Giuseppe, absolutely. I actually meant to tweet this, but I didn't have time before we went live. I think at 13% rostered, Hardman's going to have one of those days that everybody's scrambling to get him, whether it's this week or next. I would definitely get ahead of that storm. He could easily be the number one receiver on this team.
Bulldogs starting Wandale, Josh. It's so funny reading these things. You can tell it's a bye week because
everybody,
they have good teams and they are starting guys in Bulldogs. Like I'm starting Wandale, Josh Downs, and Rashee Rice in one of my leagues.
Good luck. Yeah, bandaged on up, baby.
Listen, I was on top of the world with running backs, and now I got Tony Pollard and Henry on bye and Montgomery hurt, and all of a sudden, I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel just like
Kyren and Montgomery for me, Henry on bye. I got a horrendous backfield. Yeah, I get it.
Brent says one running back, one wide receiver, and a flex. Aaron Jones, Gibbs, Zach Evans, AJ Dillon. Never. Come on. Deontay Johnson, Mike Thomas, and Josh Downs.
If Aaron Jones didn't play, maybe this is the 1 week you can consider Dylan because it's against the
I don't think so.
But Aaron Jones is playing. I wouldn't even, let's not even entertain that. Jones absolutely locked in. After him, for the flex, I actually do really like Jahmyr Gibbs with no Montgomery. And then I think we're looking at Deontay. I like the other receivers too. They're all, within a couple spots of each other, but I like Deontay there. Truth, what do you think of a rapid fire here? It's 8:03. We got kickoff in like 10 minutes. I think it's time. All righty, here we go, Wolfpack. Thank you again. One last plea for that thumbs up. We do want to get to all your questions. About 10 minutes till kickoff, so I'm going to mow through these. One flex play between KJ Osborne and Sutton. Ooh, gun to my head, I go Sutton. He's been really productive this year. Guys, should I trade Trevor tonight? I would definitely start Geno Smith over Trevor. Mike Duty, 1 PPR. Flowers, Ridley, Cooper. I would go Cooper over Ridley this week. Jeff Wilson, Javonte Williams, Jalen Warren, Kareem Hunt need 2. We'll go Javonte Williams is the clear number 1 there, and I think Jalen Warren is my next one, Robert Moreno. Kristen Mann, good to see you. Great week 7. No questions, no players, just tuning in. We love that. Thank you so much,
Kristen Mann, who, by the way, is not from Australia.
Yeah, and Omar also seconding that that she was the one that tweeted out the 13 sacks, most sacks in the league. Yeah, she's a great follow. Definitely recommend Cooter Doodle. Great stuff on Twitter over there. And at Fantasy Life. Is Etienne a lock? Yes, absolutely, Johnny D. Top 3 running back in back-to-back weeks, over 22 points. You can't bench him. Fellas, I'm up Sheets Creek without a paddle. Magic Mike, welcome on in. Always good to see you. PPR, who would you drop to field the kicker? I would probably drop Mitchell there. Miles Sanders also very much in the consideration. Not Hopkins, though, Magic Mike. I'd probably drop Mitchell. Start Trevor Lawrence or Derek Carr. Oh, gun to my head, Trevor Lawrence, Kyler. Don't love either, I guess. But, I don't hate either. Roll Taysom Hill tonight or wait for Kmet? I'd probably go Kmet, even though I don't like it. Oh, Pat Bailey from the Rockies. Good to see you. I didn't even realize the name there as I'm going into rapid fire mode. So, Pat, I'd go Cole Kmet. Well, I see you for pizza later, Pat, is the question. Jeff Wilson or Kareem Hunt? I'd go Kareem Hunt there. Myself, 6-0. Trade. I can't do a trade right now, George. Sorry. Definitely tune in on Sunday or another waiver show. But Truth, you're muted. I hear you saying something, but you're muted. I can't.
Can you hear me now?
Now I got it.
Yes. All right. Basically, he's saying, would you trade James Cook for Devin Achane?
Yes. Especially if you're 6-0, 110%. So thank you for boiling that down for me. Yes, 110%. George Play, do that deal. Higgins, CD, and Dell on bye. Receivers are Addison, Judy, Dobbs. I would play Slayton over Rondale Moore tunes. Sarah Riley, C. Watson, Javonte, Ayuk, or Nakua. You got to start 2. I'm going Ayuk, and I'm going Nakua there. Both top 10 options for me. Ingram or Pitts. I'm going to go Ingram there, tunes. T-Law or Carr. I'm going Trevor Lawrence, as we said. This game is about the late money. I think Vegas threw the Saints a bone. 23-13 Saints, says Patrick G. Mafia. Patrick G. Mafia, by the way, back-to-back streams, commenting a bunch of great stuff. New fan of the Wolfpack. Cheers. I'm glad to see you. I love when the back-to-backers here come back for new ones. Of course, I love all you regulars like KJ Frederick, too, though. But I recognize you, Patrick G. Mafia. Welcome back. Should I drop either Zach Evans or Roshan Johnson for Latavius Murray, Donta Foreman, or Jordan Mason? I wouldn't drop Roshan yet, but if he doesn't start practicing soon, yeah, drop him for Foreman. Get the starter there instead. Zayan, start 3. Debo, Olave, Devonta, Jacoby, Pittman, and McLaurin. Whew, good options. I go Olave tonight. I could see him having a solid night. Go Devonta Smith in that shootout against Miami. The rest of these, I think I go McLaurin, but man, Zion, if you don't mind coming back Sunday, let's reassess this. But yes, I get Olave in tonight, and Devonta Smith's my other lock. Late Jags bettors will lose. Yeah, I think this is a Saints game too. I'm on Saints and I'm on under, Patrick. It seems like we're on the same page. Flex 1, Gibbs, Rice, Ford. I would go Ford maybe over Gibbs. It's Ford or Gibbs for me, grind. Let's see how the health reports are on Gibbs on Sunday, but I'm leaning Ford right now. Trade Bijan for Javonte. Dynasty trade? No, I would not trade Bijan for that. Christian Kirk or James Cook, full PPR. I would go James Cook over Kirk very slightly. Rest of the season, Saints or Browns? Definitely the Browns. What an elite defense there. Pizza. Nice. You guys rock. Thank you, Pat. We appreciate having you here. Go Saints. Hey, must be a Saints fan. I'm pulling for the Saints tonight too. I think they win. Zayan says, okay, sweet. And thanks. You're welcome. Wolfpack, no spam at all, Pat. You're awesome.
Dude, hey, we finished early. Like, we actually are under the gun. We appreciated all the comments. We appreciated the kind words. That's not spam. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, not spam at all. I pulled the trigger on the rapid fire, I thought we'd have to get it done. I just want to hit all the questions. But guys, thank you so much. It's why we start early. It's nice to kind of end with a little time for us to get now settled in for our games too. We're usually scrambling here at the end. So best of luck to you guys. Wolfpack will be live as always Sunday, 10:45 a.m. Me and CJ, me and Truth on the recap at Sunday night as well. Can't wait to see you guys then. All more content will be getting pumped out on rotostreetjournal.com. I pumped out a piece on Salvin Ahmed and Chuba Hubbard last week. Who are my guys going to be this week? I nailed it last week. Let's see who happens this coming week. Who I write up, we'll find out. But Wolfpack, best of luck. Hope you get what you need if you have anyone playing tonight. And we will see you guys next time. And the Wolf, if there's a sheep on your way out, thumbs up too. And Royal if there's a sheep, sub to us and be a sheep, or be a wolf, not a sheep, obviously. I'm all over the place, Truth. I got to get out of here. We love you guys. Cheers.
Later.